Welcome to the latest episode of The Independent. I'm Pete Sampson, joined as always by my co-host Matt Fortuna. Today on the show, Joshua Perry of NBC joins. He played for Chris Ash at Ohio State. Had some thoughts on where Notre Dame's defense is, where it still needs to go, and how it can get there. Matt and I are going to talk a little bit of Arkansas. Notre Dame heads there this weekend. And Matt, I think Marcus Freeman has been careful to be like, I don't want to hear about how we're 4 points away from being undefeated. Sam Pittman probably would love to talk about how he's 5 points away from being undefeated this year.
Yeah, the difference between a coach who entered the season on the hot seat versus a coach who went to the national championship game last year. Marcus Freeman's done a lot of talking, though. And
and gesturing.
Yeah. I don't know if you got the table count with.
I didn't do yesterday. I figured that I've sort of exhausted that as a journalistic device in terms of counting podium, but I'm not sure if his podium is going to make it through the season. I mean, I think it's a week to week proposition at this point.
It was it's funny because you were in the room. I was watching it live on YouTube, and you have the live YouTube comments as we see on our show, and Freeman gives a 4-minute answer, and I thought it was a great question by Tim Priester, to the effect of like Mike Elko decided to take over defensive play calling before the year, I think, at A&M this year. Would you think about doing the same? And it's kind of meandering in the beginning. It's not the play calls, it's the play, it's the play, whatever. And he's like, we're not, or what he say? It's not the play call. He said everything.
Execution. Yeah, execution is the word you're looking for, I think.
And he's like, we're not, he does the whole, like, we're not going to point fingers thing. And like every YouTube comment's like, you're pointing fingers at your players right now, coach. Like this is what you're doing by now. And I don't think he was doing that, but I understand why people would interpret it that way. But it was an interesting answer among several interesting answers on what's become an far more interesting football season than I think any of us had signed up for even 3 weeks ago. It's become must-watch TV, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you're not just talking about the games at this point. I mean, Marcus Freeman at a podium is must-watch TV. So they've got. I was on a radio show in Arkansas, and I feel like there's a kind of, as you reference, like there's a desperate hope of sorts that the Razorbacks can kind of like pull the season out of the fire at Notre Dame's expense. I think from Notre Dame's point of view, it's much more of like, we can't keep going on this way, right? Right? And I think that every time I get up or I get into those media settings and I hear Marcus Freeman talk about the defense, it's sort of what I wrote after the game on Saturday night. It's just like, I think he takes it's a personal affront to him that Notre Dame is playing his defense as poorly as they are. And while the answer to Tim's question I thought was really insightful, and it felt like Marcus had like thought about how he was going to answer that kind of question before the presser started, when he opens it and says like, hey, our zone defense or our man defense fundamentals are off, our zone is not good, our pass rush is bad, needs to be tweaked. I sit there thinking like, wait a minute, that's sort of everything. Like, unless we're talking about like run fits or something, like I'm not sure what else there is. And I think it might, as much as I think the Notre Dame's offense, and especially its offensive line, has progressed from week to week to week, as offensive lines do, I'm not sure the defense is going to get there in a similar way. Although, our pod guest Joshua Perry points out maybe it will.
Yeah, I'm not so sure either. And it's been interesting. I mean, you go all the way back to the halftime, the lightning delay intermission interview Marcus Freeman gave in the middle of the Purdue game, where he also gave like a multi-minute answer to a pretty routine question of just, we're not doing this right, we're not doing that right, and we're not doing this. And the alarming thing for me is not how he's saying all this, although I don't know if that's necessarily comforting if you're a Notre Dame fan. The stuff he's pointing to is, all right, I got to coach that better. I got to do if the call's not working, I got to coach this better. If the guy's not playing this right, what am I doing wrong? Like, this is the stuff that the 9 months of the offseason are for.
Right.
that to me is like, if we're still talking about that, and like, we're not all dummies here, we all can see what's happening on the field, but like, if the head coach is still getting up there after the game and on Mondays still talking about this, like, I don't think those are in-season fixes. I mean, not saying they can't get better, but these seem like fundamental program / schematic issues that don't change with one good week of practice for Arkansas.
No, and it's like Arkansas is going to be a real test. I think they're top 10 in total offense and yards per play. If you haven't watched their quarterback, Taylon Green, he's their leading rusher with, he's averaging 8.2 yards per carry. That's on top of 12 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. He's averaging about 300 yards passing per game. And if last year's defense was going down there, I'd be like, no problem.
Yeah.
Like this kid is going to throw for $125 and run for 42 and throw 2 picks. This defense, I don't know. I will say, this is a very amateurish injury update, but being at practice for interviews yesterday, not that we watch practice, but Leonard Moore appeared to be dressed for whatever they were doing and walked across the sidewalk if that means he can defend Omega Blake, which is one of the great names in college football. Omega is apostrophe O. So it's O apostrophe mega. Like, great.
It's Nitro Tuggle's better.
Yeah, Nitro Tuggle is better. But I mean, among Nitro Tuggle, Omega Blake, and we've got Hollywood Smothers coming in October with NC State. Like, elite wide receiver names this year on Notre Dame's schedule. But, I mean, if you got a healthy Leonard Moore, I feel like they got it. If they had a healthy Leonard Moore against A&M, I think they would have won that game. But how healthy Leonard Moore is going to be after that ankle sprain 2 weeks ago, it looks, based on walking across the sidewalk, that he's okay. The fact that he was in uniform was good because he wasn't on Saturday. But if they don't have Leonard Moore, this is like you got to win in a shootout situation territory for Notre Dame.
You're overlooking BC, which has a running back by the name of Turbo Richard. And I know this because a friend of mine...
It's unbelievable. What a year.
A friend of mine DM'd me a meme with Turbo Richard and Nitro Tuggle right next to each other. It said, how did Turbo Dick and Nitro Tug not end up on the same team? Great question. They're both on Notre Dame's schedule, though, so we'll all get to see them.
Yeah, for what it's worth on that one. I think other things this week, Mike Denbrock came in for the first time this season. They changed it up. We used to talk to him every week. Now it's not. But he talked a little. He said, look, the Wildcat is still in play, but was very game plan specific. And felt like I asked him a version of the question I asked Marcus on Monday. Like, is the Purdue offense, if you put aside the statistical success, which everyone would want to run for 250 and throw for 250 in a game. But is that sort of what the offense is supposed to look like, where you lean on the run game over and over and you can take deep shots? And he's like, run game for sure, but he wasn't so married to like the deep shot offense in terms of that's a real identity of the team. Obviously, it looked good going to Malachi Fields. I think they should try that more often. I think they should take a deep slot fade shot to Jaden Greathouse. Anything to Jordan Faison recently has been very good. So there's a lot. But he did say, look, Carr's an understanding of the game plan, how to operate checks, adjustments to make the line of scrimmage is very high end. I think we've seen that. We saw that on the Jordan Faison touchdown last weekend. So there's a lot of Denbrock very high on where CJ Carr is right now. So, and I guess before we sort of keep going on this, shout out to our new sponsor, Home Run In Pizza. If you're like me, you've got kids in youth sports. I've got volleyball and soccer running concurrently right now. Basketball season is around the corner. Home Run In Pizza is a lifesaver. Fresh, healthy, natural frozen pizza. It is delicious. My kids love it. It is a friend of the pod and a friend of our freezer.
Big Saturday coming up at the end of a full day of college football where I forgot to eat because I'm watching every game and covering them too. I could house an entire Home Run In pizza all by myself. Grab it out of the freezer, and in no time, I catch up on what I should have eaten during halftime. Also, a fun fact, Home Run In is actually the original tavern-style pizza, the OG of cutting pizza into squares, real Chicago tavern style. Thanks again to our friends at Home Run In Pizza. You mentioned CJ Carr. You had some pretty interesting stats about him coming out of the Purdue game. PFF gave him a 93.4 grade for his performance against Purdue, which you said was the highest grade by a Notre Dame quarterback since the PFF started rating the position in 2014. Right. And then you had some others. His passer rating through 3 games is 166.7. For context, it would be top 10 in 8 of the past 9 seasons. Virtually identical to sophomore year Trevor Lawrence, junior year J.J. McCarthy, sophomore year Caleb Williams, and sophomore year Bryce Young. You've got 2 Heisman winners there and 2 national champion winners there, and then a single season Notre Dame record. Am I crazy? No, this isn't a gambling podcast, but like you could get him right now anywhere between plus 6,000 and plus 10,000 to win the Heisman. And I say that to say, if Notre Dame were to win 10 in a row and make the playoff, they're going to be a national story. If they do it, it's going to be because they're scoring 40 or 50 points per game with this offense. And they got a famous last name at quarterback who's lighting up the record books. He won't, I won't say he won't win it. The front runner just got hurt this week. But like, am I crazy to think this guy could get to New York if they make the playoff?
If they make the playoff because of what would be required for them to make the playoff, yeah. I don't like it's a extreme long shot, I think, even to make it to New York, but you can see how it could happen, right? I mean, I still think Jeremiah Love would be the one that went, but still, I think Carr's season, and I think it's interesting, like you do these like it's like the baseball equivalent of the guy who hits a home run in game 1, he's on pace for 162 home runs. Like, I get it, it's early in the season, these stats don't continue over the course of 12 games, but he had Miami and A&M.
I was going to say, they might with the defenses he's facing.
Right. So the first 2 games should have been the hardest, never mind the fact that they were his, like if he was a third-year starter, those would be the hardest games on the schedule. Those were his first 2 starts at all. So, yeah, I think Carr's season is probably underrated nationally because Notre Dame is 1-2, but the numbers he's putting up, like if you set the Notre Dame single season pass efficiency record in your first year starting as a sophomore, like that's bananas. And look, I get it. It's probably going to actually be a lot harder for him to put up these kinds of numbers next year when Jeremiah Love is gone. I guess we'll see about Jadarian Price. I would assume that he would leave, but if I was Notre Dame, I would be like, hey, how about you be the feature back and we can get you more than 9 carries per game? Like, I don't know if you saw my final thoughts, but like if you looked at total offensive snaps by Notre Dame players last week, I want to say they played 23 players on offense against Purdue. And I think Jadarian Price finished 20th or 19th in snaps played. Like, I think he only played 12 snaps and scored 4 touchdowns. Like, that's ridiculous. So you bring back, and I think the way the offensive line's going right now, like there's nobody from that group is like, I'm out, I'm going pro in terms of how they're playing. If you brought that entire group back and Jadarian Price and CJ Carr, next year, a CJ Carr Heisman futures bet. Can we get Tim Murray back on the show to tell us like where we can place that or how we can place that just as a entertainment advice? Like, that might be a good move.
Already turned the page of next year, Pete. So negative.
No.
I'm talking about this year, and as you're saying all that, I'm looking up Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels was what came to mind because that was a guy who put up crazy numbers because he had to put up crazy numbers because he had no defense. He also had Mike Denbrock as his OC. His passer rating that year was 208.01. But LSU lost, 4 games that year? 3 games? I mean, they were out of it. Like, if Notre Dame were a playoff team, and therefore a championship contender, perhaps, there's a bump from that. I mean, we're talking way down the road here, but he's played well enough through 3 games where like, I feel like he's warranted that discussion as bad as the defense has been.
Yeah, I think it's a fair combo to think about where this is all going with CJ Carr. Nationally, I think within, Notre Dame, that point of view is this going to be the best single season since Clausen, better than Clausen his junior year. Certainly the team's a lot better now than it is then. But Yeah, what Carr's doing, and I think it's the command of the offense. Part of it is hard to know unless someone tells you I'm checking and changing plays at the line of scrimmage. But I don't know if you listen to Carr's post game after Purdue or not, but somebody asked him about the first touchdown, and it was like he kind of had like a Sean McVay memory of like where the safety is, how they rotated, the depth they were at, like the matchups, and you're just like, holy crap! Like most first year starting quarterbacks are like, what do I do? Like I don't know. And he just sort of sees the whole field horizontally, vertically, all the matchups, where they are, how DBs are shading, and I think this was always like a David Cutcliffe thing. That the first thing he would do with quarterbacks is teach them coverages. I feel like CJ Carr knows all the coverages, and it's good quarterback play and good quarterback coaching is when you can approach the game like, I have all the answers. I just need to know what question you're asking, being what question the defense is asking. And I feel like CJ Carr knows what questions the defenses are asking already. And as soon as he figures out how to just take no gain or throw the ball away sometimes, which seems like it should be easy to learn, but it's a little bit more tricky than that for a guy who wants to push the ball vertically. But once he understands like taking zero is okay sometimes, like that's just going to take everything to another level, because you're not going to have these weird fluky interceptions like he had against Texas A&M where he throws back across his body at the last second.
Did you see this flew under the radar somehow? I thought it would have got more play. John Oran's Puck newsletter about USC and Notre Dame. Apparently, USC tried to sell a future game with Notre Dame to Netflix, and that did not go over well with the Big Ten and their TV partners. They don't have any future games, which is interesting, right? But it said in Mexico or in Las Vegas. I knew
Mexico.
I don't want to pilfer the whole story here, but this was last month. Netflix is off a firestorm in the world of sports media when news leaked that the streamer was looking to pick up the rights to the Notre Dame USC game. Both Netflix and USC considered ways to circumvent these arrangements and homed in on the idea of scheduling the game at a neutral site like Mexico City or Las Vegas. The traditional partners went berserk when they learned about the subterfuge. A flurry of phone calls, as one source described it. Big Ten officials almost immediately shut down the idea, and the conference made clear that USC was not allowed to sell media rights to individual non-conference games on their own, regardless of where they are played. And then RN chimes in with his own commentary of like, well, I understand the need to make an extra buck. USC was extraordinarily naive, and he put extraordinarily in italics.
Is that, how many people have written or said USC and extraordinarily naive in the last 25 years?
I'm surprised we didn't hear about that, the Netflix part of it. I'm surprised it didn't get more play, because that does sound like a breach of contract for one, but just like, you're the new kid on the block. I could see USC maybe trying this their last year in the Pac-12 and being like, all right, we're out. We're tired of being, the biggest breadwinner for this conference. But to enter your new home and try that. And I get there's more in the story about like Netflix is viewed as a competitor, and that's why none of these networks want to share their TV talent with them for their one-offs. But that one caught me by surprise.
They focus on some interesting stuff out there. But yeah, I had heard, so I think I referenced this in a previous pod. Like there was a story, I think in the LA Times, that USC had approached Notre Dame with a multi-year sort of extension of the contract. I was told the multi-year actually was 2 years. And that Mexico City was in fact one of the venues that had been pitched. And Notre Dame was like, no, we're not doing that.
Wow, what's with all these? I don't know.
It's like they're trying to get Notre Dame to be like, fine, we'll stop the series.
No, but it sounds like that was Brian Kelly's negotiating tactic on the way out of Notre Dame. No, what's with? I'm very conflicted on international games in general. Not to say that like Dublin every once in a while.
I've enjoyed them,
but like, why is Michigan going to play Western Michigan in Germany?
Yeah, that doesn't.
Who's going to London next year now? A couple Big 12 teams, right?
Yeah, what was it? Kansas State, Iowa State in Dublin this year?
I was in Dublin this year. I'm fine with Dublin. I don't know, like Mexico City, like why? I don't like. I just college football, like it's so precious as far as like you get
There aren't that many
7
games.
home games,
Yeah,
and that's what makes it special.
and 3 of them are usually bad.
Like if you have a story to tell, I'm fine. Like Notre Dame going to Ireland, I'm fine with.
Notre Dame, Boston College in Rome. Great, let's do that.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I think that'd be awesome.
I'm conflicted. I mean, it's cool for some people. I get it, but like others, like I don't know what the negotiations are between Western Michigan and Michigan. But if you're a MAC team and you want to move your operations to Germany, like show me the money, right?
Yeah, it seems expensive, right?
It's nuts. By the way, everyone, the ACC recently announced they're going to go to 9 conference games and require a 10th power conference opponent. I'd imagine Notre Dame would solve that for a lot of teams in the years they have to have Notre Dame. I've not gotten clarity yet on how that all shakes out. But the Big Ten right now is the only power conference that's not doing that, right? I mean, they got 9 conference games, but their non-cons have been just god awful lately.
It's amazing how the Big Ten, in the matter of like 3 months, went from like everyone should do what we're doing to like, oh, we're not playing. We're playing the easiest schedules of them all. Actually, sorry. At first glance, the ACC adjustment relative to Notre Dame seems totally fine, right? Like it's not.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the Clemson's still there, independent. It's like if you're, I don't know if they want to extend the Stanford series at this point.
I could see Clemson, that long-term deal they just signed, being altered.
Could be.
They're going to play South Carolina.
Yeah. Clemson's got other issues as well. But like, I think that,
yes,
I don't know. It seems fine. Like the way the scheduling has shifted around I thought the 9 conference games would be a real problem for Notre Dame, like as a national trend. But instead it's 9 conference games plus 1 major conference opponent. And for Notre Dame, that's like, awesome. We'll do that. We'll be your plus 1 in this situation. And I think that I had concerns that Notre Dame was going to run into a scheduling inventory crunch. I realize that probably makes me sound naive because Notre Dame's like, everyone wants to play us. What the heck are you talking about? But once you got to the 10, that 10th game, you're like, oh, okay. Well, if you're all going to do 9 conference games plus 1, like that's great for Notre Dame. Like they would love Notre Dame to be that plus 1, and Notre Dame would love to be that plus 1 for a lot of schools.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was a little concerned if they were all going to go to 9, but since they're all essentially going to 10, I think that that liberates Notre Dame from a scheduling perspective in a very big way. And I mean, it's a win for college football fans. Like, we could cry about the inventory or the money that's not going to be going to Group of 5 schools or FCS teams and how those programs might struggle to stay afloat. But who are we kidding? We're headed for a break off if we're not there already.
You can cry about it. I've lost all interest in that at this point.
This will be how will we get Northern Illinois Notre Dame again?
That'd be
Notre Dame again. It's better inventory for TV partners. It's better games and season ticket packages for fans to, go to and tend to. And all these schools are facing a money crunch right now with revenue sharing. If you can do a home and home with Notre Dame or another power conference opponent, and you don't have to pay $1 million or $2 million to invite someone for a beatdown, that also makes the math much better for these athletic departments. So long time coming. I'm glad most of them are taking the approach they do. I hope the Big Ten follows suit, and hope we get Notre Dame USC, preferably on campus and on NBC, Fox, or CBS.
Yeah, that's if the Big Ten would, pull its head up. That 10th game, Power 4 game, like that makes it easy for USC and Notre Dame. And it's like this whole idea that like, oh, we got to protect our playoff positioning. Like, not really. I mean, it's one, you have to win a lot more games, but if everyone's playing 10, like the 9+1, like, and you're only playing 9, but you've got Southeast or Southwest Missouri State. I'm not sure. It just, I don't know. I mean, you went to Penn State. If I was a Penn State fan and I looked at the home schedule and I was like, awesome, Oregon. What else do we got?
Nebraska,
Villanova,
Indiana.
It just like, I feel like everyone should play somebody out of conference where the fan base is like, oh, I'd watch that. opposed to like, oh yeah, another warm-up game.
And all the pushback I get from people in the Big Ten is just like, why would we do it? And I think it's just blowing up in their face right now. Why wouldn't you do it? Like I don't.
Yeah.
Who benefits from Penn State Villanova? I mean, like,
no idea.
I don't know. I just think the more good games, the better. The idea that, well, why would we play this? What if we lose it? Like, I don't buy that argument.
It's just like a loser's mentality. I don't.
Well, I love right before they played, this would have been 2 weeks ago, Pitt and West Virginia announced they're extending the backyard brawl into 2036. They weren't sitting waiting around saying, well, how are we going to do this? We don't know if the ACC is going to go this number of games. What about the playoff? What if the playoff expands? And this is a game we don't know. Like, college football is better when Pitt and West Virginia are playing each other. It's better when Notre Dame and USC are playing each other. Like, it's one of the few times I can count in like recent college football history where the guys were like, screw it, this is the right thing to do for both of our schools and our fans. Let's go do it. Even if maybe it does hurt us in the playoff picture 12 years from now when, the whole world's come to an end. Like, I just don't.
It's similar to the argument that people make when Notre Dame loses early and they're like, well, your independence hurts you now because you don't have a conference championship game. And Notre Dame's just sort of like, yeah, so what? Like, if you lose games, there are consequences. Like, the point of sports is not to game the system. Yeah. It's to win the games and like create memories along the way. And you don't do that by playing 3 cupcakes in September or like the IU scheduling situation. I'm just like, and I being in South Bend, I know a bunch of IU fans who have been IU football fans since 2024, but like I think already after 1 year, they're sort of like, come on, like Kennesaw State, really? Like, can we get somebody? And I just think the appetite for that it craters pretty quickly. And I think that we're sort of already there with a lot of schools, or their fan bases, I should say.
Yep. No, I mean, Indiana's schedule is like a team that until recently just want to go bowling. And I can understand like the old coach wanted to do that, or like Northwestern or someone wanted to do that. But now I'm not for it. Now I will say like not that I'm arguing for like conference Notre Dame. I do think the 14 playoff really did hurt them as far as like,
sure,
you lost one game and you're out. But that's also what you sign up for, and they made it twice as well. So they're in a really, really good spot right now if they can just figure out how to win all those games on Saturdays and get their defense to tackle and defend better. We're going to go to questions. Before that, I want to thank you all for subscribing and encourage you to continue to subscribe to The Independent on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave a 5-star review and a nice comment, and continue to follow us on YouTube and engage with us on YouTube during these live shows as well. Would like to also thank our friends at Obvious Shirts, OBVIOUSSHIRTS.com. Great pod merch, quarter zips, hoodies, crew necks, t-shirts, you name it. Obvious Shirts has it all. Thanks to our friends at Obvious Shirts for being a great partner of The Independent.
And thank you to Roback for partnering with The Independent. Matt and I both have the dog logo on today. He in a hoodie, me in a quarter zip. You can use promo code Irish for 20% off your first order at roback.com. That's RHOBACK. Not a unintentional product placement. I did a feature on Jordan Faison, who also is partnered with Roback. You can check out that feature at theathletic.com. But you can use the promo code Irish for 20% off your order at roback.com.
I teased the questions a little bit too early. We will get to those right at the other end of our interview with Joshua Perry of NBC Sports. Welcome to the show, Joshua Perry. We're now pleased to be joined by NBC Sports college football analyst, and more importantly, former colleague of mine on CHSN's late, great, big college football show, Joshua Perry. Joshua, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you guys' time.
You're in studio, you see all these Big Ten games, you've seen every Notre Dame game. Been an interesting year for you. I thought, halftime of the Wisconsin game was interesting for you, having to talk about two guys you played for, Luke Fickell and Chris Ash, who are both under fire right now. This being a Notre Dame podcast, we'll keep it at Chris Ash, but I'm curious just your early impressions on the Ash era / experiment on the defensive side of the ball for Notre Dame.
I think it's been intriguing to watch. Chris Ash, when we were at Ohio State, and before when he was at Wisconsin, he was a guy who ran heavy zone coverage. He was a quarter coverage guy. Love that. Nice dog in the background. Quarters coverage. He switched it up with some cover 3, and then he goes to Notre Dame. And Marcus Freeman has been a guy whose DNA is man-to-man. He wants to challenge everything. He wants to be aggressive on every route combination. And so I actually got on campus in spring and talked to both of them and was like, what is this going to be like? And it was basically this is Notre Dame's defense, but we need to have some wrinkles. We need to have some things we can do to change up looks defensively. The first game against Miami ran a little bit more zone coverage. People had a lot of questions about the defense. It didn't look like it did last year. And then against Texas A&M, they ran about 60% of their snaps per PFF in some version of man-to-man, whether that was cover 1 or cover 0 all out. And so I think there is this question about who is Notre Dame going to be? Are they going to be a team that maybe gives up a little bit because they're playing zones, or are they going to be the team that wants to challenge everything in man-to-man? And I think the answer to that question is it doesn't really matter. My biggest concern with Notre Dame football right now is they can't get after the quarterback. And I think all of the coverage questions become a lot simpler when you have a defensive line that can wreak havoc, when you've got guys who can win one-on-one matchups up front and make the quarterback have to make a decision under duress, or you can hit the quarterback. It becomes a lot easier. So I think there's like a tug of war that's probably happening in the staff room that should be happening, because you have kind of philosophies that are at odds and you're trying to figure out the best way to put players in position. I think one of the things that really needs to be happening is, whether we're playing zone, whether we're playing man, what can we do with our front to make sure that quarterbacks are miserable when they come out on the field?
When you watch the front, because I think Matt and I came into the season, you say Boubacar Traore, Bryce Young, these guys are going to be elite, future pro. Like DNs, like their D tackles are just fine. Like they're guys. But the lack of pressure has been shocking to me. Like, do you get a sense of what the technical issues are that are stopping somebody from Traore or Bryce Young in particular from really going off in a way that I think anyone who watched Notre Dame thought they were going to go off this year?
Yeah, I mean, Boobie's coming off the injury, and so I think it's a little bit of take some time to get your legs back under you and to get your game to a level where it's confident. I think for Bryce Young, like, hell of a player, very good athlete, he's got to get more reps under his belt. I think part of his deal is, how many pass rush reps can you get him so he can know what his arsenal of moves is going to be? But you mentioned the interior of that defensive line, and I think a lot of us, when we talk about pass rush and we talk about pressuring quarterbacks, we think about edges. And when you're great on the edges, one thing that offenses can do is they can scheme to that. They can chip you on the outside. They can turn protection to your number one rusher. If you've got guys on the inside that can be a problem, now that's where you can create the one-on-ones. You're starting to see in the NFL where defensive tackles who can rush the passer are becoming a premium position. So I think it's a combination of factors here. And it's not like this is a thing that has to hinder them all year long. I think as guys get more comfortable on the field, they figure out their go-to moves, that becomes a little bit better. I think the coaches are going to understand how they can pick the one-on-ones based off of the way they can manipulate protections. One of the things that Marcus has done a great job of with that defense, and the same thing with Chris Ash when I played with him, is they know how to put linebackers on the line of scrimmage to dictate protections, mug them in the A gaps, put those guys up on the edge, overload the front to one side, and then bring the rush from the other side, right? Like, those are all things that can help it along. I don't think this is like the personnel's really bad and you got to get in the portal next year and just hope you can swing for the fences. Like, I think they're fine personnel wise. Just think everybody's just got to get a little bit better.
How much of this do you think the lack of pressure can be attributed to facing maybe the best offensive line in the country in Miami, a good one in A&M? I don't know about Purdue, but they did get home more against Purdue than they did the first two games. I mean, do you think this is a problem that could be fixed simply by the remaining competition?
It's a great factor that you bring up here. Miami might be the best offensive line in the country. And frankly, their defensive line is really good too, right? So, like, right off the bat, you play the best line of scrimmage team, in my opinion, in college football. And it's going to expose some of the questions that you have. To your point, A&M certainly is not Miami, but like that's a really good front. And the thing that they had working for them was also a quarterback that can get you out of some trouble. He's a very mobile guy. And you always have to be careful with them because they can extend plays in ways that will expose your back end if you allow them to. I agree with Purdue. Like maybe you want to see the sack numbers look a little bit better, but they were owning the line of scrimmage in that game. So part of it, yes, is who they played to start the season. I think if you're a Notre Dame fan, and certainly as a guy who played at Ohio State, like same thought process is they don't give a damn who's lining up on the other side. They just want to see the guys go out there and make plays. So you're in a tough spot when it comes to that. And I give credit to the teams that they played, no doubt. So I think that is a factor. The reality also is that Notre Dame football has an expectation that regardless of who they're playing, they've got to be the one who can dominate.
How alarmed would you be if you heard a coach describe what needs to be fixed on defense this way? All right, our man defense principles are not where they need to be. Our technique needs to be better. Our zone defense isn't where it needs to be. Like we need to get more on the same page, and our pass rush needs to get better. Because to me, that sounds like you're trying to fix the plane while it's flying. Like these are good things to do in April and June and August, and terrible things to do in September. But that's kind of how Marcus described the defense this week. I mean, how alarming is that to hear?
I think it's alarming. I also think it's the truth. I think it's candid. So I give credit to coaches who don't walk out and try to BS people and create stories of how good everything is when it's not. The reality, to your point, is it'd be nice to know that in training camp so you can have all of those things down. Once again, like I look at the back end too, and you can make an argument that it's taken a step back from where they were a year ago. Like Xavier Watts was one of my favorite players to watch at Notre Dame. And part of the reason why was because he's a guy who fixed everything in the back end. Like somebody's running uncovered and it's like, here's the eraser in the middle of the field and he's going to solve all your problems. That guy's not there anymore. And that's just the reality of it. So if you're a corner, if you're somebody in underneath coverage, you probably got to do your job a little bit better than you had to a year ago because you didn't have the guy who would fix everything for you. So I think there's part of this where it's like, maybe not as many veteran players. So you're trying to get over that. Maybe you're missing that true eraser in the middle of the field. You're trying to figure that part out. Like I do think there are a lot of differences in the defense this year. That's play calling, that's personnel, that's everything versus last year. But the reality is I think that they are a couple of pressures, maybe a sack or two and a sack fumble away from feeling like they're one of the best defenses around.
I mean, you look at the schedule, USC's so far so good. Arkansas will present some challenges, Boise State, go down the list. Who do you think would give them the most problems based on what you've seen from everywhere in college football so far this season?
I mean, it feels like it has to be USC. And that is an offense that feels like what Lincoln Riley was hired to do out there. Jay Maiava has been phenomenal spinning the rock. They do a really good job of pushing the football down the field with creativity and scheme. They've also done a good job of getting back to some of the run schemes that Lincoln Riley got popular for. So when they can have some balance and it's not just 7-on-7, it becomes a lot harder to figure out how you're going to deal with some of the weapons that they have on the outside. So if we're talking from a defensive perspective, I think that's the case. Now, I'm not sure that USC's figured out what's wrong with their defense at this point. So Notre Dame's offense, you feel like can go out there and move the ball. And to me, that's the biggest difference. Like I've gotten into this. What if Notre Dame had the offensive DNA they have this year with the defense from last year, right? Like that's a team that made it to the national title. But they've got great balance, a really good run team when they decide that they're going to call runs. And CJ Carr has been very efficient. He's got a big arm, so he can take the top off the defense and loosen up the safeties. So I think like part of the issue with that USC matchup is I think it heavily favors Notre Dame when they have the ball. But then there's the question of when USC has the ball, do you get the stops that you need?
You know Chris Ash pretty well as from a playing point of view. What's he like as a coach? And how do you think he's sort of processing this, kind of taking some real bullets here in a way that, probably he hasn't in quite a while?
I'm sure he's pissed, and he should be. If he's a competitor, that's the way that you would be. Chris Ash was the guy who would blow the play dead before the snap, and he would yell at our safeties for being like 6 inches off of their landmark on the snap. He's like, if you're supposed to be 9 yards deep in the C gap and you're 9 yards deep, but you're hovering between the C and the D gap, you're wrong, right? And like, that's the level of detail that he presented when he was coaching at Ohio State. So I think that he's looking at this, and he's looking at a lot of it from a personal standpoint. Who am I as a coach, and how can I get this thing better? Which is the way that he should approach it. There's also like this thing that happens when you're a coach, though. And when he was at Ohio State, he was the guy on the defensive side. It was him and Luke Fickell, because Urban was an offensive coach. So a lot of the practice time, Urban would be on the offensive field screaming at the guys because they're not blocking up quarterback power right. And I think there's this probably a little bit of a process he's going through on, you have to be deferential to the head guy in Marcus, and he should be, because this is his program and the defense is his identity. But how do I do that while also being the head coach of the defense in a lot of ways? And this is all speculation for me. I haven't talked to Chris since the summer, but the idea there is that I know he's a very detailed coach. I know that he's hard on players when he needs to be, but there's also probably a balance of, I need to fit in where I get in, and the head coach is the guy who makes the final call, which is the way it has to be.
I believe his first year was the year you guys won the national title in
Yes.
2014. And I asked him preseason this year, hey, you know what you're walking into at Notre Dame. Do you have any defenses you can compare to? And he said the only one would be, as far as talent, 2014 Ohio State, which won it all. But it wasn't, you guys lost the game early. It wasn't the smoothest season until, you guys ended up winning it all. He was also coming in to co-coordinate the defense with Luke Fickell, if I remember correctly. What was that dynamic like? What was that balancing act like? How did you see him kind of take over or assimilate into what was already there?
So it was Urban went out that offseason, and he wanted a very specific defensive identity. And he looked at Michigan State under Mark D'Antonio and what they were doing, because we played them in 2012 and we scored 17 points in that game. We played them in 2013, the Big Ten championship, and did not have a good day offensively. And Urban was like, whatever they do, because it was aggressive in the pass game and they had the extra body in the run game, so our quarterback run was not effective. He said, I want to do that thing. So he brings in Chris Ash, and it's like, the table is set. You get to install your defense. Luke Fickell was completely on board. They kind of had their different specialties. Chris was a back end guy. Luke Fickell was really good with the front. That worked really well. Now, all that to say, it was a lot of learning for us, because the whole thing was brand new from scratch, like new terminology, the way that we communicated, new schemes, new alignments, everything else. And there were some growing pains for us when it came to getting into that defense. When we kind of had our breakthrough and started figuring things out, and part of that was around the time that we played Penn State on the road and win the 2 overtimes. Insane game. Should have never been that close, but the whiteout's insane over there. That was kind of when we
nice plug for NBC.
Make sure you tune in pregame at 7:00. That was when we kind of learned what we could be as a defense. And so I think there's also a part of this where, like, when you're changing and you're adding new things, and it's not wholesale changes like we had, you got to get comfortable in some of the defense, some of the technique, and some of the way that you're asked to do different assignments, maybe differently than you had done them in the past. But like I said, he puts in work like the great ones do. And it's just a matter of, it has to click at some point. And I feel like the personnel is right there. It's just a matter of, what is the defense going to be from an identity, play calling, execution standpoint.
Last thing for me, just flipping to the other side of the ball, you mentioned CJ Carr. I think we all thought he would be good this year. Based on last week, he's better than good. What is it about him that's a little bit different? Does he, in these very, very early days, does he remind you anybody either you played against or you've watched over the last few years?
The thing that stands out about him, I think, is the maturity to go out there. He played in big games early on. The first game, I feel like there were training wheels on. I think a lot of people would agree with that and how they approached the first half of the Miami game. Second half, they started airing that thing out a little bit, and you could see the talent helped open up the offense. against A&M, he had his opportunities, and same thing. Like, you put the ball in his hands, and he can make all the throws on the football field. It was good for him to get a matchup like Purdue, where you're the better offense coming in there. You're going to be able to dominate the line of scrimmage. And now when your opportunities come to throw the ball, a lot of them are going to be those big shots, which we know that he can make. I'm not the biggest comp guy, so I don't necessarily have a comp for him. But the idea that you have a quarterback now where the offense can run through him, but it's not on the ground, it's through the air, and he can make all the throws. We're looking at probably the best running back room in the country. Penn State people would have said before the year, those guys don't look the way that Notre Dame's guys have looked over the last couple weeks. When you have that type of talent in your running back room, and you have a quarterback that makes safeties have to pause, where they can't get downhill and stack the box, that's when you got an offense that can really attack.
Last one. I feel like the more appropriate question would be like, who don't you know or aren't you close with the Notre Dame staff? Because there's obviously so much crossover from when you played in Columbus. You're obviously very familiar with that staff. Just your general thoughts on working with some of them, and maybe who are some of the guys who are flying under the radar beyond, Marcus Freeman, the coordinators, guys who are, headline names.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are all awesome. There's a reason that coaches end up at a place like Notre Dame. And it's for Notre Dame, obviously very different than a lot of other programs, right? Like, you have to kind of, you have to be that guy who can fit into a place like that with the high academic standards and all the tradition that comes through. So all the people that I know over there, and that's, Chris Ash, we talked about. Marcus Freeman was a GA at Ohio State when I was getting recruited. So he was one of the first people I got to know really well as a high schooler. Just seeing his career has been phenomenal. Al Washington, who's coaching the D-line, is somebody who I've gotten to know over the last few years, and he's just a phenomenal person. Some of the support staff over there, not as familiar with the offensive staff over there at Notre Dame. So maybe next time I'm in South Bend, I got to sit down and spend some time on the offensive side of the ball, really get to know some of those guys. But it's been remarkable, especially as young as Marcus is, how he's been able to create connections in coaching, and how he's been able to develop coaches that he's been along with. And the fact that you bring all those personalities into a place that has unique challenges like Notre Dame does, just from the standpoint of can't recruit just everybody, and you put out a phenomenal product every year, I think has been fantastic to see.
Awesome. That's Joshua Perry. You guys can catch him on Saturdays on NBC all day, all night long. Lots of good coverage there of Notre Dame, the Big Ten, and beyond. Joshua, appreciate you joining us.
I appreciate you having me.
All right, we're back. Matt, you should have suggested that Josh have a home run in pizza based on his all day, all night football watching. Oh, also, I think you.
Now you can. Sorry.
You got that? All right. Yes.
Yeah.
I also want to give a shout out to my dog for making a podcast appearance. It's been a minute since Rosalind has popped in there.
Thanks, Kirk Herbstreit. Really needed that. Before we get to questions, I want to thank our other sponsor, DraftKings. The rivalries, the marching bands, the upsets. Saturdays just got way more fun. College football is back. Think you know the game? Put your knowledge to the test with DraftKings Sportsbook and turn your picks into big payouts. With live betting, rivalry week odds boosts, and more, DraftKings Sportsbook has everything you need to own every Saturday. This week's Notre Dame-Arkansas line is Notre Dame favored by 4. You can bet it on either side on the DraftKings app right now. And here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers, bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code INDEPENDENT. That's code INDEPENDENT for new customers. Get $300 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-97-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, fees may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility. Varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expires 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Let's get to questions. Tristan Tahara. I've heard this from other pundits. Maybe this is how our offense and defense will be this season. I hate to admit, but last season we had an elite defense and pretty decent offense. No argument for me, Tristan.
Nope.
I'll believe the defense is better when I see it. But the signs we've gotten so far through 3 games are not great. This game's very interesting to me for a number of reasons. It was always going to be interesting because it's the first time they've played them. It's an SEC road environment. That's a raucous place. Arkansas 2-2 feels like they should be 4-0. They got a coach who entered this year on the hot seat. Like, are the wheels coming off there, or is this the game that reinvigorates them? I don't know. Both offenses have looked really good. Both defenses have looked really bad. I mean, I'm not telling you how to bet, but you could get the first half over under right now at 31.5. You could get the first quarter over under at 13.5. Just for recent historical sake, the first half totals of Notre Dame's 3 games this year are 21, 52, and 58. That 21 number came after a scoreless first quarter when they were breaking in a new quarterback, and Miami was as well, at least a new quarterback to Miami. Arkansas's first half totals 38, 49, 59, and 45. I think CJ Carr and the Irish offense are getting better. I don't know if the defense is getting better. Even if they are better, they've shown their improvements to be in the second half. I don't know if they're going to come out and light the world on fire at 11 a.m. in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
No, I wouldn't expect that at all. And when you say that, you're saying, I don't know if we're going to light the world on fire defensively.
Correct.
I think they may let both teams.
I think they will
light the world on fire offensively. Yeah, it's like the game over under is like 64.5.
Yep.
Which, like, for the first time in a long time, I'm like, yeah, I would definitely hit the over on that one. Like, Notre Dame has been like a default under team. My big gambling advice was the under for Texas A&M, which obviously hit. But I think, man, this on Saturday, I think there's just going to be a lot of up and down the field, back and forth. I feel like this is going to be a shootout, which I haven't said for a Notre Dame game in a long, long time.
What's their history at Bobby Petrino? I'm trying to think. 2014 with the missed field goal when he was head coach at Louisville, but I feel like I'm almost surprised that they wouldn't have played him.
Yeah, I guess not.
So he got fired at the end of 18. 19, they opened against Satterfield. But I mean, say what you want about the guy. He can call a play.
Yeah. He might be the head coach at Arkansas.
I was just going to say he might be a head coach in a couple of weeks, maybe even next week if things go really south. But yeah, I just 13.5 first quarter, 31.5 first half. What am I missing here? Right? Like,
yeah, the 13.5 first quarter. That's really interesting to me. That would be one that'd be like, I like that one a lot.
Do you really think it'll be a 10-3 game at the end of one? Because I don't.
No, 14-7.
14-10 or 14-7, yes. Archer 0-0 arrow. You could be right, Tristan Tahara. Too much talent on this defense to be bottom half, though. It'll pick up. It has to, right?
Right.
I give that emoji a lot when I'm like being facetious.
Yeah, it does have to pick up. Like, I don't think they're going to be this bad all year, but I think they could still be this bad this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they won't be this bad against NC State and Boise State and BC and Stanford and Syracuse. By the way, shout out Steve Angeli, torn Achilles. Poor guy, just can't catch a break, but I hope he recovers from that, as soon as possible. But yeah, I think it will get better by default, but I don't know if that's going to happen this weekend.
No, it's like what Purdue went up and down the field on them in the first half. Like, Purdue's not great. All due respect to Nitro Tuggle. Like, that's, if you're getting worked around by Purdue, who could not run at all, like they could only throw it, and they could not really pass protect, but they still scored 23 points, including the just downright maddening 2-minute or 1-minute drill at the end of the first half. Like, Arkansas is legit. And they've played. It's not like Arkansas only played garbage teams to get to 2-2 or to put up these stats, I should say. Like, they put up close to 550, I think, at Ole Miss, and had a complete meltdown mentally at Memphis last week. And Memphis is good, but
that was a double-digit
the Northwestern game from 2014 for Notre Dame, where you're just like, what are you doing? Just kick the field goal and get out of there.
I'm sure you've made mention of this either on Twitter or elsewhere. The defenses in this game, yards per game, Notre Dame is 101st. Yards per play, they're 96th. Scoring, they're 118th. Arkansas is a lot better by comparison, but not good. 83rd, 76th, and 73rd in those respective categories. Again, is there a weather thing I'm missing here? I've had a lot of weather issues this season. I don't get it. Andrew Benjamin, it just doesn't look like it's being taught very well right now. The message doesn't seem to be getting home, just like the pass rush. But
yeah, I do think like for fans who listen to Freeman press conferences, and he's when you hear blaming the execution and think like that's blaming the players, he is very quick to be like, we are not doing a good job as coaches of teaching these fundamentals. I don't know why that is, because look, Matt, I think we would both agree that Mike Mickens is a elite defensive backs coach. Did he forget how to do that?
Right.
In one off season? Because that doesn't really make very much sense to me. And yet Notre Dame's DBs are not playing very well. So I don't get it. There's only one thing that changed from last year. It's the defensive coordinator. Like even my 12-year-old on the way to school is like, I really miss Al Golden. Like it's the longing for Notre Dame's old DC is real around here. It's like, do you think he could come back? Are the Bengals good? I'm like, not really.
Sounds like a kid whose parents are getting divorced. I'm not calling him dad.
Chris Ash, I'm your new cool dad. No, you're not.
Chris Avila. Pete, what are you most looking forward to at Arkansas this week? I know you got a big dinner that I was invited to, but will not be making.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to make it to that one because I'm actually staying in Bentonville, which is like Walmart USA. But a quick scouring of the restaurant scene in Bentonville was incredibly promising. So the 11 a.m. start means potentially 2 dinners out. So look forward to that. But also, like, I love going to like first-time stadiums for me. I have been to most places at this point. Because like Notre Dame just sort of goes through all the ACC rotation, so I don't get a lot of new stuff. I think that like SEC stadiums, I've been to 3 in the last 6 years, but in the first 17, 18 years on the beat, I'd only been to 1. So I know people are like, oh, the SEC, it just means more yada yada, but it really does. Like these people really turn out for it and they're passionate about it. I think they will be even at 11 a.m. So number 1, restaurant scenes in Bentonville, but number 2, the scene at was it Donald J. Ross? What's the Reynolds?
Reynolds.
Yeah. Who's Donald J. Ross? Is that the painter? Bob Ross. Anyway, the scene at Arkansas, even though they're 2-2, I think will be pretty awesome. And at practice yesterday, they were playing noise at Notre Dame, and I think it included the calling of the hogs.
Does it say pig noises? Yeah.
Yeah. So there was calling of the hogs. So get to hear that one too.
How far is Bentonville from campus?
It's like a half hour.
Oh, okay.
20, maybe 25, 30 miles. So on game day, maybe it'll be an hour, but yeah, it's not like Chicago, South Bend.
I once, I was probably on Fine, but I remember once hearing Spencer Hall, Every Day Should Be Saturday, saying, you know, most SEC football fans are pretty normal people, except for on Saturdays where, like, you know, it brings something out of them that, you know, makes them crazy. He's like, except for Arkansas, they're crazy 24/7. So that's what you're signing up for.
Looking forward to it.
Archer 00 arrow execution of the players. There's a joke in there somewhere, right? PK. Yes, there is. He's gonna have his hands full this week at the Fighting Lane Kiffins. I'm afraid. Although that's for whatever reason seems to be the type of game where they'll get outgained by like 200 yards and win on a missed field goal or something like that.
That is a classic. How did BK win this game again? Oh, yeah.
Last year was exactly that when they played them. Pray for the. Sorry. I was reading this.
Bernie.
So it said Razorbacks 77, Arkansas 3. Pray for the Razorbacks. Irish 77, Arkansas 3. Is Lou Holtz going to be there?
Oh, man. I don't know. I feel like he's already hit a couple games this year, right? I don't know. I haven't heard about that. It is the Lou Holtz Bowl.
It is Lou Holtz Bowl. He corrected pray for the Arkansas coaches. Yeah, I might need to do that regardless of whether this is a 77-3 game or not. A lot of Chris Ash jokes. It's Marcus it's Jay Carr. Again, we don't know if he's related to CJ Carr, but he's got a quite the picture. Brian Van Gorder with fire in his eyes. Is Marcus anti-calling plays as a head coach? Remember when he got the job, he was adamant he was a head coach when called a defense against OK State in the Fiesta Bowl. Last big win for Mike Gundy, by the way.
Ooh.
Cheers to you.
Yeah, I don't think that Marcus calling plays is the whiz-bang solution that I think some people perceive it to be. Like, I don't think Marcus is like some genius play caller. Like, I think if you rank the strengths of Marcus Freeman as a head coach or just a football coach in general, I'm not sure I'd put play calling in the top 5. Can he put a plan together, teach it? Yep. Recruiting, yes. I think program management, very good. But I mean, what's that based off of? Like in 2021, the defense got torched in the first 2 games. And then they really put up some good numbers in November where they played backup quarterback after backup quarterback after backup quarterback. So I don't look at him as like this play calling savant. But I do think he's got to go to Chris Ash and probably has. That was, another quote that stood out from Monday. I was like, we had an uncomfortable staff meeting. I didn't want it to be comfortable regarding the defense. He's got to get with the defense coaches and be like, so what do we do well? And let's do those 2 or 3 things moving forward until we can do 4 or 5 things, until we can do 6 or 7 things. Because right now it's hard to look at the defense and say, like, what would you say you do here? It's kind of hard to pick those things out when you're talking about Chris Ash and that playbook.
So I agree. And this isn't to knock Marcus Freeman, but like, if you look at recent just defensive coordinators and their jobs as defense coordinators in Notre Dame, I mean, he's maybe 4th out of the last 4 pre-Ash.
Yeah.
I mean, Elko, Lee, and Golden.
How clearly is after those 3 guys.
So it's not to knock him. The other part too is, what if the issue isn't Chris Ash and you fire Chris Ash? Like, what if the talent isn't what we all made it out to be? Or maybe like Chris Ash did such a poor job of teaching it in the offseason that you fire him, but you can't just reteach him like, not to make this a blame game, but like, the buck stops with Marcus Freeman. If he fires the defense coordinator he just hired and the defense still stinks, then whose head is everyone going to be calling for? Figuratively speaking. So I think you need to take that into account too. And again, I cannot tell you why they're not very good right now on defense. We could throw out all the theories. We could point out what they're doing wrong. Why that is, I'm not certain. And I don't know if they're certain right now either. On that same note, Jim Myman, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Do you think your contacts within the program are just as surprised as you are about the defense we see on Saturdays, or are they offering cover to fellow coaches?
A little of both.
After last week, I think they're surprised.
Yeah.
I got pushed back the first 2 weeks of, hey, it was a competition. You're underestimating everything they lost. After last week, I have not heard many people jump into Chris Ash's defense.
No. And I think that A&M was in some ways easier to look at and be like, they had, I don't want to say they were like dropped, stone cold drop interceptions, but they had 4 of them. It was Bronte Johnson, Christian Gray, Carson Hobbs, and Leonard Moore. Like, they all had a chance to get a pick that obviously would have changed the outcome of the game. Hobbs and Moore in particular, because they were both in the end zone. But is the talent as good as what we thought? No. I think even Freeman in a quiet moment would tell you he's been surprised that I thought these players were better, but he was the one that, forget the recruiting part of it. Like, he's the one that evaluated them in August and came to the conclusion, we got a great friggin' defense, and they're not even close to that. So there is some surprise on the talent level, but I think there's also some surprise, on the Ash front too.
Bernie, who's been nothing but positive, he has another comment here saying he wants 3 Notre Dame players in New York for the Heisman ceremony. He says, what a fantastic guest. This guy is incredible. Thank you, Bernie. Joshua Perry is incredible. He's awesome. He knows everything, seems like. More. Andrew Benjamin. Thank you all. There are a couple questions here, mostly directed at me, even though you just said it. Zapatos 1290, talent is not the problem. Fortuna, Raymond Harton. It's Chris Ashmat. Talent is not the issue, man. And yet Andrew Gilmore replies with the rational question of the 6 main starters left the 24 defense, Mills, Cross, Kaiser, Morrison, Watts, Clark, what replacement in 25 is better or more talented? Maybe Leonard Moore over Morrison, since he replaced him last year. I don't know if you'd call that a like for like, but.
No, I mean, certainly neither defensive tackle, obviously not at safety, not even close. You could have a conversation about Kaiser and KVA, I think, but Clark to Dallas Golden or Clark to Hobbs is not even close there either. So I think that, and it's like when you put up these names on the screen, we've got, I think, a 5th-year senior, a 6th-year senior, a 6th-year senior, a guy who ended up not playing because he got hurt, a 5th-year senior, and a 5th-year senior. And like for Mills, Cross, Kaiser, and Watts, like all of their seasons were at Notre Dame. And I think that has been, maybe that's sort of been overlooked, that they were good players, don't get me wrong, but they were also incredibly experienced in the same system. Whereas now you're much younger and you've got a new system. I mean, it was on the coaches to figure out how to make the new system as close to the old system as possible. They clearly have failed at that.
It's like Jay Carr says, KVA is a better talent than Kaiser, but I would refer back to everything you just said.
Yeah, and it's like that's why I'm saying you could have a conversation about KVA or Kaiser. I think it's like that's the thing that Kaiser and Watts, they're often described, and I think Perry might have referenced this, like they were called problem solvers by the staff. So like when stuff was a mess, they fixed it before the snap. I don't know who does that on this defense. I don't think they have problem solvers out there, and they've got a lot of problems, but they don't have anybody to cover them up.
Andre King, friend of the show, 2 bald guys. What a glorious sight. Yeah. Take that, Joshua Perry. Glad you saved that comment for toward the end of the show. I'll let Pete take this one. I don't know if it's referring to Notre Dame's potential record this year or other slang.
Oh God! Well, if they go 6-7, you had much bigger problems than Chris Ash. Much bigger problems than Chris Ash. So I think that we're safe on that one.
A lot of references to Pete's pop culture, including pop culture from yesteryear. Raymond Harden, fun fact. I actually met Bob Ross as a kid and took oil painting lessons. My family owned a craft shop in the ATL, and I have Bob Ross's dining room table in my dining room. LOL. Hope you're not using that for food. Like that's like a relic. That should be in a museum.
That should be in a museum. Ray, that's impressive.
Jay Carr with some comments for your trip to Arkansas. The campus is pretty cool. Been there about 10 years ago. Their stadium is cool as well.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Few. Beefeater NDOA. I'm going to edit your question here for sponsorship's sake. Matt, what does DraftKings have? Let's block that out. As the odds Rob Hunt will be taking Ash into the locker room before halftime.
You make it sound like this is an old Yeller situation. Like, got to take him out to the field or something. I don't know. I don't even have a joke to make at this point.
Zapatos 1290. Who's the shortest tenured coordinator you guys can recall? I'll retract my snarky Chris Ash joke here.
You referenced it.
Clark
Lee fired his OC before it was David Raya, I think. Was that his name?
I don't remember who it was. I found out from your story embedded with him for his first game, and I'm like,
yeah, I was like, that was definitely like, ooh, this might not work out.
Bobby Petrino, Barry Odom hired Bobby Petrino as his OC at UNLV, and Bobby left like a week later, and then he hired Brendan Marion.
Oh, okay. All right. So
I
it
don't know if
happens.
that counts, but yeah.
In
season, though, yeah. As far as like getting fired.
No.
Not, yeah. Thanks, Beefeater. NDO8. Sorry, DraftKings. Tough to keep it straight. Thank you. That's all I got right here.
Predictions.
Oh, yeah. Other than all the overs I told you to take.
Yeah. You want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I'll go first. I've eaten my words multiple times.
Yeah, I haven't
so far this season. That being said, you can get Notre Dame at -4 right now. I think you got to take it. Like, you're not going to get too many opportunities to take a Notre Dame football team with whatever, despite what everyone's saying, it's still a very talented football team coming off a national championship appearance, going up against Arkansas team that is, while talented, are they a top 10 team in the SEC? I mean, probably not this year. So I think Notre Dame wins. I think it's high scoring. I see this in the 41-27 range for Notre Dame. What, is that what you had?
I had 42-27.
Okay. Well, they have a backup kicker. They're going to miss an extra point.
That's why I was going to say no field goals, but you took it a step farther and included a missed extra point. Yeah, that does not give me good vibes. The kicking situation, I do think it is almost as simple as, does Leonard Moore play? Then Notre Dame wins. If Leonard Moore doesn't play, it's hold on for dear life for 4 quarters. So I'm going to go with Leonard Moore does play, and Notre Dame wins 42-27. But I think we're still a long way away from anyone looking at this defense and be like, oh, it's good. On the right track. I don't think this weekend is going to be the weekend that happens.
By the way, Jay Carr added to our earlier discussion, didn't Deion take play calling away from Pat Shurmur after like 2 games last year? Shurmur, sorry. He took it away from Sean Lewis and promoted Pat Shurmur his first year.
Right.
Sean Lewis found out about that through a Brett McMurphy tweet. Lewis is now the head coach of San Diego State, a great bald brother. I don't know if you saw the viral picture of him. I might have sent it to you, Pete. I know I retweeted it.
Snapback hat.
Yeah.
My son makes fun of that for me all the time in the summer when I'm golfing.
Oh, so you get that too. I've never had that. Anyway. I don't remember what happened last year. Whatever, it did work though, because Colorado went on a run that none of us saw coming. Not giving anyone any ideas here. You've got 42-27. I've got 41-27. Both of those are over. Both of those are covers. I definitely recommended the under the first 2 games. Again, you might have gotten it with the first game, depending on when you got that bet in. But I also had Notre Dame winning those first 2 games, and they did not. Even last week, I mean, depending on when you bet on them, they either covered or they didn't, because that line went from 28 to 24, and they won by 26.
Pretty much say that about any game ever.
With them, yeah.
Either they covered or they didn't. All right. Well, I don't know. What are you doing? Any games this weekend?
I will be home watching the greatest Saturday I could possibly remember from sunup to sundown.
It's a great slate. So until Saturday, we will reconvene for our post-game show. Matt will be home. I'll be at Donald Bob Ross Reynolds Stadium after Notre Dame-Arkansas to recap. Hopefully there will be less therapy involved in this show, but I have a feeling we're still going to be heavy into therapy for our listeners after this one. So until Saturday, he's Matt. I'm Pete. Thanks for being with us on the latest episode of The Independent.